Your heart rate spikes as you read the comment. Some anonymous user just called your favorite Air Jordan colorway trash and claimed the 2001 retro was better than the original 1985 release. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, muscle memory already crafting a response that will systematically destroy their credibility. You know the production codes, the exact materials used, the factory locations, even the specific shade differences in the red leather. This isn't just a disagreement. It's a personal attack on your expertise, your taste, your entire understanding of sneaker culture. The world sees this as grown adults arguing about shoes on the internet. But you feel something much deeper. The desperate need to defend knowledge that defines who you are. You spend the next 45 minutes crafting a response that cites release dates, material specifications, and historical context that proves beyond doubt why they're wrong. You include photos from your personal collection, links to archived articles, and references to interviews with the original designers. When you finally hit post, your chest tightens with the same anticipation you felt defending your thesis in graduate school. To outsiders, sneaker arguments look like the most trivial disputes imaginable. Adults spending hours debating whether Chicago red or bread red is the superior colorway, arguing about leather quality on shoes that cost more than most people's rent, writing essays about why certain retros are disrespectful to the original vision. The energy invested seems wildly disproportionate to the subject matter. But Dr. Henri Teichfeld's social identity theory reveals why these arguments feel existential rather than trivial. His research showed that people derive significant portions of their self-concept from group membership, and they'll defend group knowledge with the same intensity they'd defend personal attacks. When someone questions your sneaker expertise, they're not just challenging your opinion. They're challenging your membership in a community that has become central to your identity. You don't just collect sneakers. You study them. You know which factories produce the best quality Jordan 4s, how Nike's air cushioning technology evolved year by year, why certain colorways never retroed and probably never will. This knowledge isn't casual interest. It's specialized expertise that took years to develop. And like any expert, you feel compelled to share and defend that expertise when you encounter ignorance. Dr. Dunning and Dr. Kruger's famous research on cognitive bias shows that people with limited knowledge in a domain often overestimate their competence, while true experts become acutely aware of how much they don't know. This creates a painful dynamic in sneaker communities. Newcomers make confident claims based on limited information, while veterans recognize the complexity those newcomers are missing, but struggle to explain it without sounding gatekeeping or elitist. You've been collecting for 15 years. You remember when Jordan retros sat on shelves, when you could walk into Foot Locker and choose your size in any release, when sneaker blogs were personal websites run by true enthusiasts instead of corporate content machines optimizing for clicks. Your knowledge comes from lived experience, from making mistakes, from watching the culture evolve in real time. So when someone who started collecting last year confidently declares that resale prices prove which shoes are actually the best, you don't just disagree with their logic. You mourn for the culture they never experienced and probably never will. Dr. Sherry Turkle's research on digital communities found that online spaces often intensify the psychological stakes of disagreements because they remove social cues that typically moderate conflict. In person, you might notice that the person disagreeing with you is young, or new to the hobby, or simply misinformed. Online, they're just text challenging your expertise, triggering defensive responses that would seem disproportionate in face-to-face conversation. But there's something else driving the intensity of sneaker arguments, the fear that your carefully curated knowledge might become irrelevant. You've invested thousands of hours learning production details, colorway names, and release histories that younger collectors often don't value. When they prioritize hype over heritage, resale value over historical significance, You feel like they're erasing the very foundations of the culture you helped build. The arguments aren't really about shoes. They're about cultural preservation. You're fighting to maintain standards, to preserve knowledge, to ensure that sneaker culture doesn't become completely commodified and lose what made it special in the first place. Every correction you make, every detailed explanation you provide, every time you share rarely seen photos from your archive, you're trying to be a guardian of something that feels precious and fragile. Dr. Clay Shirky's work on knowledge communities revealed that expertise-based groups develop strong norms around information quality and member credibility. The most passionate arguments often occur when these norms are threatened. In sneaker communities, your ability to contribute valuable information depends on others recognizing your expertise, so you defend that recognition fiercely. This explains why sneaker arguments follow such predictable patterns. First comes the factual correction, supported by evidence. Then the credentials establishment. How long you've been collecting, what rare pieces you own, which industry connections you have. Finally, the cultural gatekeeping, explaining why their perspective represents everything wrong with modern sneaker culture. You're not just arguing about shoes. You're arguing about who gets to define authenticity, expertise, and value in a community that has become increasingly mainstream and commercialized. But here's what most people miss about these arguments. They're also expressions of love. You argue because you care deeply about getting things right, about preserving knowledge, about maintaining standards in a culture that means everything to you. The intensity comes from passion, not pettiness. Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability shows that people are most defensive about subjects where they feel emotionally exposed. Your sneaker knowledge represents years of dedication, significant financial investment, and deep emotional connection to a culture that shaped your identity. When someone challenges that knowledge carelessly, they're inadvertently challenging everything it represents. The most revealing moment in any sneaker argument comes when facts stop mattering. When you've provided overwhelming evidence that you're correct, but the other person continues arguing anyway. That's when you realize the argument was never about the shoes. It was about whose voice gets heard, whose expertise gets respected, whose version of the culture gets preserved. The strangest part, the people you argue with most passionately online are often the ones who would understand you best in person. You share the same obsession, the same dedication to details others find meaningless, the same desire to be part of something bigger than yourselves. The arguments that feel most personal are actually between people who want the same thing. A sneaker culture that respects knowledge, rewards expertise, and maintains the authenticity that made them fall in love with it originally, which reveals something profound about human nature. We fight hardest with people who share our deepest values because the stakes feel highest when disagreeing with someone who should understand. Every online sneaker argument is actually a debate about how to love something properly, how to honor shared obsession while disagreeing about its expression. In the end, that heated exchange about Jordan retros isn't about shoes at all. It's about the very human need to be recognized as someone who knows something worth knowing, who cares about something worth caring about, who belongs somewhere that validates the time and energy you've invested in becoming who you are. The sneaker becomes a symbol for every expertise you've developed, every community you've joined, every part of yourself that you need others to see and respect in order to feel whole.